Once upon a time in a faraway land, there was a boy named Rian who lived for his dreams. Every night when he lay down to sleep, he would dream of soaring high above the world, of flying with the clouds and dancing with the stars. When he awoke, he would gaze up at the sky, tracing shapes in the mists and longing to be free from the bonds of the earth. One day, as he walked through the meadow, he came across an old woman weaving a basket out of reeds. "Good day," she said, her eyes twinkling like stars. "What is your heart's desire?" "Oh," said Ryan, blushing, "I wish I could fly." The old woman smiled knowingly. "Ah, I have just the thing for you." With a wave of her magic wand, she transformed a nearby bush into a ball of glistening thread. It shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow, and as soon as Rian touched it, he knew it was made of the very stuff of dreams. "This is cloud silk," the old woman explained. "Stronger than hemp and lighter than air. Use it well, young one, and you might just find your heart's desire." She handed him the ball of thread and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Now, Rian had learned long ago that dreams were most vivid right before sunrise. So each morning he would set his alarm for the earliest hour and spend his days preparing for his nightly flights. He gathered sticks and stones to make a kite, shaping it carefully until it looked like a great bird ready to take to the sky. Then he would wind the cloud silk around and around the frame, making sure each loop was perfect. Finally, when the moon was full and the sun had dipped below the horizon, Rian stood in the meadow with his kite. The air was still and silent, but Rian felt a familiar pull in his heart, the tug of his dreams urging him forward. He took a deep breath, let go of the string, and watched as the kite began to rise slowly at first, then faster and faster until it was a speck of color against the darkening sky. Rian ran after it, his feet barely touching the ground as he followed his kite higher and higher. Soon, the trees and houses below seemed like toys, and he could hear the wind singing in his ears. But then suddenly, as if sensing something, the kite veered sharply upwards, shooting straight for the clouds. And there, floating high above the world, was the most magnificent sight Rian had ever seen. It was an island, an entire world unto itself, suspended in midair like a pearl in the palm of the heavens. It glowed with a soft inner light, its edges shimmering with rainbows, and its surface wreathed in swirling mists. Rian had never dreamed of such a place, yet somehow he felt drawn to it as if it were a part of him that had been lost and was now being found. As the kite approached the island, Rian's heart soared with joy. But just as he reached out to touch it, the breeze around him seemed to vanish. The kite drifted to a stop, and for a moment Rian felt nothing but the sickening lurch of falling. Then the cloud silk snagged on something hard, and when he looked down, his blood ran cold. The island wasn't made of clouds. It was solid rock, and the cloud silk was winding itself around a jagged spire. The more Kite struggled, the tighter the thread became, pulling at Rian's arms until they ached. Panic surged through him as he realized he might never reach his dream. But then he saw a small opening in the rock where mist was seeping through. And as he watched, a single drop fell and splashed onto the cloud silk. It shimmered for a moment, then began to glow with a soft inner light. Taking a deep breath, Rian remembered the old woman's words. This was no ordinary thread. It was made of the very stuff of dreams. And dreams, like clouds, are meant to drift and change. Slowly, gently, he began to pull the kite away from the spire, letting some of the cloud water drip onto the rock. At first, it seemed to have no effect. But then as more and more water splashed onto the warm stone, the mist began to lift, swirling upwards and carrying the kite with it. Higher and higher they went, until finally Rian could see the entire island floating like a jewel in the night sky. It wasn't made of clouds, but it was surrounded by them, and those clouds were filled with water. Water that, like the cloud silk, was made of the very stuff of dreams. As the mist swirled around him, Rian understood. He had been so focused on reaching his dream that he had forgotten the most important lesson of all, that dreams aren't meant to be held onto, they're meant to be shared. The water in the clouds wasn't his. It belonged to the island, to the world, to everyone. And by trying to keep it all for himself, he had only managed to weigh down his kite and drag himself down with it. But now he understood. With a final tug, he let go of the last of the cloud water and watched as it arced through the air and disappeared into the cracks in the rock. The mist around him swirled faster and faster until he could barely see the ground beneath him. Then suddenly, the breeze returned, catching the kite and lifting it higher and higher. Soaring above the world, Rian laughed with pure joy. The island was still there, shining brightly in the night sky, and he knew it would always be a part of him, a reminder of the most important lesson he had ever learned. He flew until the sun began to rise, painting the sky with colors of gold and crimson, and he knew that from that day forward, he would never hold on to his dreams too tightly ever again. For he had learned that the greatest joy comes not from what we keep, but from what we share.